Amidst the enchanting colors and vivid landscapes, the serene serenade of secluded island sounds that adorn the world, and the goofy, quirky conversations with its residents, Animal Crossing New Horizons is unmatched in crafting a welcoming, charming atmosphere where you can build your own little world on a dream getaway island. This has quickly become one of my favorite gaming atmospheres to lose myself in. However, as simple and as charming as this game may appear on the surface, there's so much more going on behind the scenes that is subtly interwoven into every action and every day that passes. I'm a magician by trade. I love to peek behind the curtains and see how and why things work the way they do. And I think it's worth doing here with Animal Crossing. I'm going to examine the ideas, the themes, the design philosophy behind what is it that creates that unique Animal Crossing experience. I'll be doing this in two parts, social structure and the player experience. There will be spoilers, if you can call it that, as I'll be showing gameplay and scenes from all across the game's journey. I am painfully aware of my own lack of knowledge on a lot of the finer details of the series and the characters within, so if I'm wrong about something, just post a comment down below with the right info. Always happy to learn a thing or two. Also, for the sake of reason, I'm using all the information we're presented in-game, as well as some supplemental research online. But where there are gaps, I'll do my best to fill those in with what we can reasonably assume or imply. I'll be focusing just on New Horizons for this video. With that groundwork covered, let's explore the philosophy of Animal Crossing New Horizons. Social structure, residents, and the island. In this iteration of Animal Crossing, you start from humble beginnings as you venture to an unnamed, uninhabited island along with Tom Nook, his nephews Timmy and Tommy, the Dodo brothers Wilbur and Orville, and two randomly selected villagers to start a journey of a lifetime. Across the course of the game, you begin with just a tent and a smile on your face, but you soon build a thriving, bustling island as more animals move in, along with the inclusion of institutions and surprise guests and events. You help create a community, and you serve a role within it. But how does the society you help construct fare upon closer examination? Let's start with the foundation of the island and its residents. The only people that we know are related are the Dodo brothers, Orville and Wilbur, later on the Apple sisters, and Tom Nook and his nephews, Timmy and Tommy. We can assume Tom cares for them and serves as their guardian. However, it appears that everyone else, including you, is on their own. And on top of that, are strangers, making introductions when you first meet at the beginning of the game. Everyone that is on your island is here by choice, as there's never any mention of being exiled or forced to be there in the first place. And with all of you living there, you have to get along somehow. With regard to the two random villagers you begin with, there are over 400 prospective neighbors containing 35 different animal species and 8 different personality types. That's a lot of possibilities. When I began my island, I just went with who I got, which was Cat and Ribbit. But I can totally understand restarting your Switch and starting over until you get 2 villagers you like, since you'll be paired with them for at least a good while until you can kick them off the island if you don't like them. I'm still trying to get Rudy to move to the island, but that's a different story. It's fascinating to me to see how the pairing system works, which if you're not familiar, some villagers just won't get along with others. Here's a quick breakdown of the personality types along with their likes and dislikes. I think I might have just lucked out in my case because I haven't come across any arguments between my neighbors, but it is a feature that showcases the depth within the characters. There's an insane amount of detail to each character design and type that makes everyone's experience playing this game so unique. The developers really spent their time on the villagers and on the island itself, and it shows. From what I've seen of other players' gameplay online is that everyone gets a variation of a starting island design. And then of course, over time, you can completely personalize and customize your island a la Minecraft, although with much better graphics. and cuteness. But the island itself is a crucial aspect of this game. Not only is it the location of the experience, but the island serves as a constant, unspoken reflection of the player and your choices. A clear example is when you begin. Your island is full of weeds. If you're like me, then you spent the first hours of the game obsessively picking them all. But you don't have to. The game rewards you if you do with Nook Miles and bells if you sell them, but you're never really forced to do it. This is exponential with each choice you make or don't. Where you place the stores, the houses for villagers, and how you decide to ultimately express yourself through terraforming the island and its decorations. Regardless of what you do or don't do, your island is always there, showcasing just how fast weeds can grow when neglected, or the beauty of what you've done and created. So now that we've laid down that foundation, how is society actually organized? Are there any governmental institutions? And what is everyone's role to play here? Even though it's just a tent at the beginning of the game, resident services is the closest thing to a governing system present on the island, spearheaded by one Tanuki individual, Tom Nook. Now there's a lot I have to say about him. He is by far the most fascinating character in all of this besides the player, so we'll go in sections. I'll get back to him. First, I want to cover the other institutions you'll come across. Along with resident services, you have the museum run by Blathers the Owl, Nook's Cranny run by Timmy and Tommy, the tailor shop run by sisters Mabel and Sable, and Dodo Airlines run by brothers Wilbur and Orville. Yes, there are a number of special visitors and merchants such as Label and Sahara, but since they don't have a set brick and mortar store, I haven't really included them in this category. The crux of covering this is that this society has no clear fundamental institutions of a traditional society, yet this society thrives almost without trying. But where are the hospitals and fire departments? Where's the police station? Where's the town hall? And when I say town hall, I mean like where a mayor would be, the city services. I thought at first that it was just the upgraded resident services building, but actually on the city map and the town map, it has it listed as resident services and not town hall, so I don't know, I was confused too. What's important here is that there's no clear order or hierarchical model of power or responsibility to defer to. The closest we get is with Tom Nook and later Isabel at Resident Services, as they are the ones through which new land is developed and businesses and villagers are brought to the island. However, even with this office being present, there's still a lot missing. Moreover, you nor the villagers even seem to realize that these cornerstones are absent, which if we apply Occam's razor, suggests that the easiest explanation is that they simply either don't know about them or they don't care. Now, on a more meta level, this entry in the series distinguishes itself by having as few remnants of society as it can. It's clear this is intentional. It's the reason behind the game. This is in contrast to the previous mainline Animal Crossing games, where the focus was living within or establishing a traditional town with all the signature establishments of society. But from an in-universe perspective, it's amazing that your island society is as efficient and peaceful as it is without the traditional building blocks of civilization. Another complementary building block to institutions is some sort of barter, trade, or currency system in place for the economy. In this case, instead of dollars or pounds, we have bells, functioning as the primary currency. Bells are accepted by all and are this universe's gold standard. But there's also a secondary currency, Nook Miles, which only seem to be redeemable between you, the terminal and resident services, and Dodo Airlines, specifically Wilbur. From the terminal, we can get a conversion rate of 500 Nook Miles to 3,000 bells by purchasing a voucher that we can sell. I did the math and the results are in. 100 Nook Miles is 600 bells, and 1 Nook Mile is 6 bells. Now, as a slight tangent, I did some digging online and found some fantastic attempts of trying to convert bells to US dollars. There doesn't seem to be an official reference point for this conversion in any of the games, so the best we can do is approximate the cost of goods in-game and compare them to the real-world price, and then average out the conversion from there. The most promising development is the in-game Nintendo Switch in New Horizons. Once you get this item, you can sell it for 29,980 bells. The real-life price of a Switch in yen is 29,980 bells. Coincidence? I think not. At the time of producing this video, 29,980 yen is equivalent to $281.21. So that puts one bell at just under 1 cent in US dollars. But that's just a theory. Wrong show. What's up, MatPat? With the currency in place, there's one store that takes the economy on its back and says, you know what? I got this. I'm talking about Nook's Cranny. There's also, of course, the Tailor Shop by Abel and Mabel, but only Timmy and Tommy are really the ones that will buy basically anything you throw at them. These timid and talkative twins are a shining example of how to run a business. It's unclear how old they are, but we can infer that they're pretty young. It would appear child labor laws are still not in effect in this world. Regardless, they always welcome you with a smile when you walk in, and they stay just 4 inches away from you as they follow you around the store, breathing down your neck. I don't think they understand social distancing. Interestingly enough, there is technically a third currency in this game as well, the Nook Miles tickets. Now I know what some of you might say, but Rudy, you incredibly dashing young man, don't you know those are just Nook Miles in disguise? And to you I would reply, thank you for the observation, you beautiful stranger. But if that's the case, why can't you just pay Orville Nook Miles directly at the airport to visit the Mystery Islands instead of having to save up your Nook Miles, go to resident services for the terminal, buy the Nook Miles, wait for it to print off, run to the airport, stop, take a selfie, talk to Orville, and then finally redeem the Nook Miles tickets? Why not save us all that trouble of running around when you can just pay Orville directly? All that wasted time! The old adage is true here, that currency is really only what 2 or more people agree has value. In this case, only the player character and the Dodo brothers accept Nook Miles tickets. I still wish you could pay them directly though. Continuing down the institutional train of thought, another alluring aspect about this social simulation game is that I think it achieves something not even the developers had in mind. What I mean is that in this iteration of Animal Crossing, you are stranded on a deserted island with a group of random individuals you don't know, with no sort of a clear authority or consequences for your actions. There are no police. There is no jail. If you get hurt, the closest thing to a doctor is some medicine you can whip together yourself with some weeds and a hornet's nest. None of the fundamental building blocks of society are present. Yet against all odds, you are able to achieve a thriving and peaceful, unintentional utopia. It begs that existential question. Left to their own devices, what would a group do? There are countless examples in history of what happens when a group of people are marooned on an island. This trope has been explored in everything from movies, to reality TV shows, to classic novels. When analyzing this game, I immediately thought of Lord of the Flies, the 1954 novel by William Golding. In that case, you had a stranded group of well-educated boys descend into chaos. This moral decay, expressed in the book and in other expressions of the same scenario, has almost always been presented as seemingly inevitable. Both across fiction and non-fiction accounts, it shows just how difficult order, peace, and prosperity is to achieve when there's no one to hold you accountable for your actions. Things usually turn for the worse pretty quickly. What is so riveting about Animal Crossing here is that without failure, just as in my island and in yours, there is peace. There is harmony. Unless you're dangerously funny, because that dude has the most chaotic run-through of Animal Crossing I've ever seen. Love you. But for the vast majority of us, there is no instability. Resources are always plenty. No one seems to have a true life-threatening situation. It's a true utopia. Just set up some lights, cause it's getting dark on you, boy. Where were we? Classes. In Plato's Republic, there are a myriad of dialogues and political theories presented. Yet out of all of those, there are two concepts I feel apply to New Horizons pretty clearly. The first being the ever-famous phrase, quis custodiet, ipsos custodes, or who watches the watchman? This was originally intended to be a philosophical question about what do you do when the people who are supposed to guard you and protect you go rogue. Plato uses the example of the guardians of the city-states, or you can update it and modernize it to today and ask, what would we do if the police or military force went rogue? When viewed through this lens, there's no judicial system as we know it in New Horizons, because there's never any justice that needs to be dealt. It's almost as if by the laws of physics and metaphysics within this universe, true conflict can't exist. The most you get is when you ask Isabel to speak to a resident, or two villagers are arguing, and even then it's handled in the most apologetic and respectful way possible in order not to hurt anyone's feelings. This isn't a bad thing, I'm just pointing it out. There's no need to have anyone watching because there's no wrongdoing to be watched. That's the key here. The same goes for a hospital. It's never needed because no one ever gets injured to the degree of needing it. The second point is that of Callipolis, a utopian city-state ruled by a philosopher king that Plato presents as the political and social ideal. There are many layers to the construction of such a city-state, but I want to focus on just one, the class system, in which Plato parses into three categories: trader, legislator, and warrior, that are all governed by the king. In the unintentional utopia of New Horizons, there is a similar tier system of three classes as well, however, not exactly the ones Plato talks about. Instead, we have to bring in everyone's favorite communist, Karl Marx, and the classes of plebeians, the proletariats, and the bourgeoisie. Here's how I would divide it up. First, it's safe to say that all the villagers are plebeians, plebs, commoners, noobs, defined by Merriam-Webster as one of the common people. This term comes to us from the Roman tradition. It's clear to see that all the villagers are just minding their own business, in their own little world. From my hours of playing, I've never seen them once go to a job and work. At most, they'll be in their houses, crafting, or roaming around, running, or fishing, or spending their days just admiring the sun and taking in the beautiful scenery. It's a beautiful, simple life with simple pleasures and happiness. It truly is admirable how content everyone is with their lives. Sheeple. Second, the proletariats, the working class. In this class, basically everyone else falls into this category that is not Tom Nook. You have Timmy and Tommy, the Taylor sisters, the Dodo brothers. This also includes the random vendors that you'll encounter, such as Sahara, Label, and Harold with this photo studio. They fall into this class because they don't have extra employees besides themselves. They're both the product and the service. Boss and employee rolled into one. Let me put it this way. From what we can gather, if they took a day off, they'd be in financial trouble. This also includes Blathers the Owl from the museum. That dude is straight up passed out every time I go see him. How's he still have his job anyway? From what we can tell, he works and owns a museum, but it does seem that he might be indebted to Tom Nook. Which brings us to the great Tom Nook. Finally, the one behind it all. First off, Tom Nook is the sole member of the bourgeoisie, the only one in that category. He is the 1% of 1%. Tom barely lifts a finger to get things done. He just hires out the work and makes other people do it for him. He is the embodiment of the essence of capitalism. He is a true capitalist, one who finances all the mortgages and major projects, is the one that employs Timmy, Tommy, and Isabel, that also seems to employ or at least contract out the services of Dodo Airlines, is the one who brought the Taylor sisters to the island and the dude who started the whole shebang in the first place. Second, this is where the player character comes in. You're basically a third-party contractor for Tom Nook. He has you do his bidding for basically everything in the island, and all that you get is the thank you and occasionally a shirt or a piece of furniture. Is that legal pay? He's the one calling the shots, and the player character is just another proletariat stuck in the rat race of trying to make enough to get by and pay off your debts. Now, I don't want to mischaracterize Tom Nook as evil or anything like that. Tom Nook is insanely complex. He's probably my favorite character in Animal Crossing, besides Cherry. She's cool. He's a rich dude doing what a rich dude would do. However, it would also be misleading to say that the player character has the power on the island. This is my third point with Tom Nook. Although it may appear you have the freedom to do whatever you want, you really only have the illusion of freedom that Tom Nook allows you to have. You see, although Tom may appear to be a behind-the-scenes, not in the spotlight type guy, he fundamentally functions as the central point for everything on the island. Although the player may be the motivating actor within this realm, it is always up to Tom Nook, and later to some degree Isabelle, to give the green light before any major action can be taken. Henceforth, the true power does not lie within the player, but with Tom Nook. He is the one that you have to run errands for in order to make progress on the island. He is the only one that can finance your home. He is the one that employs his nephews who buy all your useless junk and 3,000 weed collection. And the one who has the greatest musician ever, KK Slider, on speed dial, who he convinces to come play every Saturday night on your island. This guy's powerful. He must be this universe's Bruce Wayne or something, a billionaire playboy just peacing out and starting his own island getaway. It would be easy to paint Tom Nook as a one-dimensional, money-hoarding, power-hungry, controlling dictator of his own little island. I thought as much as well initially, but upon further inspection of his motivations, actions, and outcomes, we reveal much more to this man. You see, Tom Nook is no dictator. Tom Nook is much more. Tom Nook is a philosopher king. The concept of a philosopher king is the final layer in the cake of classes cited by Plato, a ruler who possesses both a love of wisdom as well as intelligence, reliability, and a willingness to live a simple life. Wikipedia, Michael Scott. An example, possibly the only one in our real-world history, was that of Marcus Aurelius. His personal thoughts and writings and meditations reveal an incredibly profound Stoic philosophy. It is my opinion that much like Marcus, Tom Nook rules as a philosopher king, a Stoic by nature and in rule. Here you have a person, a tanuki, that clearly holds all the cards, holds the highest seat of power, has the means to use that power for whatever ends he might choose, but instead decides, every day, to be a benevolent, kind person, few with words, but sincere in heart. A tanuki who decided to build a beautiful world for you and your fellow villagers to enjoy. Someone who used what they had to help make the world a better place. That is the lesson we can learn from Tom Nook, a true philosopher king. Player experience and gameplay. It would be impossible to speak about the philosophy of Animal Crossing from an in-universe setting without also addressing the actual gameplay and video game philosophy of the experience it presents to the player. Now, this is not a review of the game, so I'll be leaving all those elements out. This section will serve as an analysis of the mechanics that weave together the tapestry of a New Horizons experience. I can't recall exactly the first time I played the original Animal Crossing on GameCube when it was released here in the States. However, I do remember watching my cousin play the game and all the amazing stories he shared about his time in that world. I remember him talking about the quest to get the golden shovel and everything he had to go through to do it. It was a special time. When I finally got a chance to play it for myself, I simply remember a comforting sense of peace. Here in this little world I could call my own, I knew things were going to be all right. There's a lot unique to the series. Its own language, animalese, nostalgic and beautifully composed tunes, and one-of-a-kind characters in its villagers. But they are all in service to one arguably more unique ideal across gaming, which I'd say is the series' most distinguishing feature, and that is its welcoming and tranquil atmosphere that embraces and accepts the player with care. There are numerous social and life simulation games, but none create an experience quite like Animal Crossing. You see, warning, super cliche coming, Animal Crossing provides something that we've become more and more detached from as a society, and that's a real sense of community. A meaningful feeling that we belong and that we matter to those around us. If you're going through a tough time, there's no better game to play than Animal Crossing. You can escape your reality for a while and dive into a world where the worst thing that can happen to you is you get spooked by a tarantula or stung by some hornets. You can live, really live in a getaway island where your neighbors are always happy to see you, where your friends call you by your name and remember what you've been up to recently, and they even miss you when you're gone. This all comes together to give you an authentic sense of belonging in this world. Now, there are several excellent videos that have said this far more eloquently, but there is a clear, positive connection between Animal Crossing and mental health. This game is a blessing to anyone struggling. It's clear to see just from all the comments under the videos in the community where people pour out their love for this game and express just how much it's helped them. And to be clear, I'm not saying this game is a solution or remedy or anything like that, but it is something that helps tremendously along the way. To come clean, I've never personally gone through what many of my friends have experienced or what I know many of you out there watching this video may have or are going through. I've never had to battle with mental illness and cope and live with it. But I know after speaking with close friends and reading the stories online from the community, just how much of a positive impact this game can have in people's lives. I mean, honestly, at times, I don't even think it's fair to call this just a game. Animal Crossing does something very special when it comes to being there in a way pretty much no other video game series really even attempts to achieve. I think it comes down to three things really: the presentation of the game, meta mechanics, and personal connection. First off, from the moment you turn on this game, you fall in love with it. This game is beautiful to look at. The clear, bright colors and cuteness overload will make anyone instantly charmed by it. The visual element is matched and occasionally surpassed by the music and sounds in the game. As soon as I hear that opening trumpet solo at the welcome screen, I'm instantly transported to my island. It's as if a wave of serenity washes over me and I can forget anything else that's happened in my day, and I can just enjoy and get lost in this fantastic little world. The attention to detail in this game is insane. When you think about how cool the islands look, the 400 plus villagers, all of the thousands of lines of unique dialogue, the designing of each and every item in the game, all the music, including 2 versions of songs depending on the weather, and the constant updates. I mean, the list just keeps going and going. You can tell this really is a passion project for Nintendo, and the developers really pour their hearts, time, and souls into this. There are so many carefully crafted details that deepen the experience. For example, when you're running around your island, the music takes center stage. However, as soon as you start approaching the edge of your island, getting closer to the ocean and the waves, the sound of that starts to fade in gradually, and then that becomes that center stage. I'm not saying the game is perfect mechanically, but it does more than its fair share right. There are still plenty of quality of life components that could be improved, but that's not within the purview of this video. The second layer of this cake are the meta mechanics of the game. As I mentioned earlier, Animal Crossing creates a very welcoming and positive atmosphere. One of the primary mechanics it employs to achieve this is that New Horizons doesn't let you be negative. Let me emphasize that. It's nearly impossible to be grumpy, angry, or be a negative, full-on jerk in this game. This isn't an RPG or an open world with limitless freedom. There are many invisible walls in place here that serve the purpose of producing and maintaining that positive feel. And many other games, like the Fallout series for example, before Fallout 4 and 76. The player is given a wide range of responses to give when they enter into a conversation with someone, the spectrum of which include everything from kind to funny, and from sarcastic to life-threatening. But here in New Horizon, those dialogue options simply don't exist. You might have a couple here and there, but it's never anything really negative. To be clear, I'm not saying Animal Crossing should have these options. They would severely damage the experience. Nor am I saying that Fallout is better because it has those choices. All I'm trying to do is draw attention to this intentional design principle that Nintendo adheres to and how it affects the player experience. If I want to go have that Fallout experience, I'll just go play Fallout. Another example is if you don't like a villager. Then the most you can do really is to ignore them until you help decide they should leave. And even then, it's always done in the most heartwarming manner in order to never put the player in a negative position or to feel bad for doing so. And even outside of dialogue options, even though I can create tiki torches, no matter how hard I try, I can't set Bree's house on fire if I don't like her. There are other examples of this mechanic in-game, like during the opening of a new spot on the island, where you can say a few words, but you can never say anything besides a positive or energetic response. This whole emphasis on this mechanic may seem out of proportion, but it truly has a significant impact. What this means for the player and the player's psyche is that it is always refocusing the player's attention and mentality towards a positive state. No matter how good or bad a person you may think you are, in Animal Crossing, you're a good person. And that matters here. The game gently guides you to a better place by only letting you see the good. To quote Dolores from Westworld, some people choose to see the ugliness in this world, the disarray. I choose to see the beauty. Animal Crossing's choice to consistently see the beauty in the world is one of the reasons it stands out so much today. For decades now, we've had such a long wave of dark and gritty movies, games, and TV shows that when something as uplifting as New Horizons comes around, it stands out. And it's refreshing and a clear reminder that these experiences don't have to be dark and gritty to be good. They just have to be good. And one of those elements that helps elevate the game beyond a game is its soundtrack. Music has been a staple in the Animal Crossing franchise since its inception. A perfect mix of adventure and immediate nostalgia somehow mixed into one. I tip my fedora to Kazumi Totaka for composing the score, along with all of the other musicians and composers that helped along the way, and the incredible team who produced and designed the music for New Horizons. From Game 1, they nailed it. The tone, the quirky instrument sounds. It gives the game such a rich sense of character through its themes. Animal Crossing would not be the game it is today without this music. This, paired with the fact that the music changes every hour, is an outstanding move. I will say my only love-hate gripe with New Horizons is that the game makes you wait so long, a killer slow burn, to unlock the hourly music until you upgrade the resident services tent. Now you can't talk music in Animal Crossing without mentioning the one and only KK Slider. He's one of the highlights of the series, especially here in New Horizons. What a genius mechanic to have the most anticipated final main event in the game be a concert. It just reifies the importance of music within this world. Like me, there are so many of us out there that have fallen in love with this soundtrack. And I already know that there will be comments decades from now back on the main title track saying, "OMG, this brings back so many memories." The music not only connects us to the game, but to each other, since we all have such a deep personal connection to it and the unique experiences we each shared. There are a litany of other spectacular games that fully embrace and go all in on player choice and consequence. Notably games like Divinity Original Sin 2, Knights of the Old Republic, and Mass Effect 2. These games have true branching narratives that are impacted by your actions, and are pretty clear to see depending on the quests and characters you experience within them. They make you feel like your choices matter, because they greatly affect the story and quests you experience in a clear, in-your-face type way. And because your choices have impact, then by proxy, you as the player get a sense that you matter. or at the very least, that the character you're playing as matters. However, in Animal Crossing New Horizons, because most players play as a digital representation of themselves, more than any game I've ever played, yes, your choices matter, but more than that, you matter. This game is a masterclass in welcoming the player with open arms, laying out a positive and healthy environment, and creating the experience with the player as the center point of the world and its inhabitants. Villagers will always be up for a chat and often stop what they are doing and react when you walk by just to speak with you. It's because of you, the player, that anything really happens on the island. Yes, Tom Nook holds all the cards, but you are the one making it all happen. You are the deciding force of action. You're the one spending 7 hours and staying up till 4 a.m. hitting a rock with a shovel looking for an iron nugget on some random island in the middle of a grand ocean with a dodo bird flying an airplane. Not Tom Nook, not Isabelle, you. You are the hero of this adventure. You're the one that decides where each of your villagers will reside, where to put the museum, where to put Nook's Cranny, where to put everything. When an important decision needs to be made, everyone looks to you. In essence, although it's clear Tom Nook is the philosopher king, you, a la Game of Thrones or A Song of Ice and Fire, you are the de facto hand of the king. You're the one who actually does everything while Tom Nook lounges around in a Hawaiian shirt watching this all go down. Furthermore, your actions, whether big or small, are remembered by the villagers. When you're getting KK Slider to come to your island, villagers will take note and even give you items to help the cause. You are an inspirational figure to these characters. If a villager sees you digging up bells and planting them, they will remark on this in later conversations. This is your adventure, and one that you craft at your own pace. This is another cornerstone of the Animal Crossing philosophy, the slow burn. Because the time in game is tied to the time on your Switch, there are several key moments within the game where you have to wait real-life days for things to progress. Now, this isn't something new within the industry or new to Animal Crossing, right? This is one of those distinguishing factors. But what it accomplishes is twofold. First, it fortifies the player's connection to the New Horizons world, because the time is the same there as it is in real life. That alone is huge. In most other games, the game world only progresses when the game is played or the player completes an objective. Here, it makes it seem that life on the island goes on, even without the player being there, which does wonders for immersion. The second component is that by forcing the player to wait, to really wait, actual real-life time, it gives us something to look forward to. This ties back to the positive mental health aspect I mentioned earlier. If you have something to look forward to, something that you've worked for, and you have to wait in anticipation for it, it makes the experience of receiving it all the better. Whether it's the opening of a new store, an additional room in your house, or maybe a new villager moving in, these things matter to us, the players, because in part, we actually have to invest real time for them. I can't tell you how many times I would go to bed with excitement because the new Nook's Cranny was opening up, or I had a new villager moving in tomorrow. That makes it so special. For a generation that loves instant gratification, and hey, I'm guilty of it too, this is a bold and frankly risky decision to continue this slow burn design philosophy. However, it is one that I think pays off tremendously, and that I believe other developers should really take note of how to properly apply it within their games. I can only imagine how much work it has taken across the decades to form and perfect the Animal Crossing formula. Mad respect to all the developers that made this series and each game possible. They created something quite special here that I hope everyone can check out at least once in their lives. I could talk all day about the social structure and player experience of Animal Crossing, but I think I've said enough for today. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I know I can ramble on and on like a madman sometimes, but if you found something you enjoyed, maybe like or comment, subscribe. I want to hear what you have to say and what your thoughts are on the philosophy of Animal Crossing New Horizons.